Can I go backwards just for a minute here?
Hmm.
Or maybe the better way to say it is let's get out of where you are today and go
Hmm.
backwards a minute to where you were
Hmm.
and being part of a national news platform and being a moderator of a Sunday show,
Hmm.
thinking now what they do in this moment, what you would
Hmm.
be doing in this moment of covering a Trump second White House,
Yeah.
which, look, it feels like we're kind of back where we were in 2017 of, oh my gosh, so much is happening so quickly all the time,
Right.
all
Right.
the
Right.
chaos. And yet, these are really substantive things that are happening.
Right.
And I don't know, do you feel like the press is able to work in this moment? Does it work?
Well, I just don't. It's interesting. Does it work? This is one of those cases where the coverage is there, but is it being seen? Right. There's, this is there's sort of a Dickens like mindset that I have sometimes when it comes to to journalism in the 2020s, which is it's the best of times and the worst of times. Meaning, there's never been more really smart analysis available, data that's never been available before. Like I have more information when you think about what you do for a living,
Yeah.
right? And what I've always thought my job was at
Yeah.
NBC, which is I've always said I primarily was there to answer one question: why? Right? Why were they doing this? Why are they doing this? Why does this person do it this way? Why is this person running? Whatever. I always said every question I was there to answer usually began with why. And essentially, I think that's what you deal with. You deal with the why more than the what, right? The what we know is ubiquitous.
Right.
It really, what people want to know is, well, why?
Right.
Why did the what happen, right?
Yep.
And when I think about the fact that I have more data at my fingertips to explain the why than ever before, there is no mysteries out there. And yet, the front door of media is a mess, right? It's sort of one of those things where it's like going into a house that's really cluttered, but it has a lot of potential. It's all there, and you're just like, boy, if you could just sort of envision, this place without the stacks of newspapers and books on the wall and the piles and the smelly and the pet smell and the shag carpet, yada yada yada. There's something here. This could be a dynamite place to live. And so national media has no curb appeal, right? It just looks terrible from the front. And I do think the major national news organizations are a bit resource starved right now, right? Like
Absolutely.
in 2017 everybody was hiring because there was the money was there, the eyeballs were there, the interest was there, everybody sort of met the moment. Now you're in an exact opposite, right? You have everybody is shrinking. Um, we can, look, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pee on your leg and tell you it's raining. It's pretty clear some of these major media companies just don't want to be in the crosshairs of this administration. So if the news divisions have to be sacrificed in some way, whether it's their reputation, ABC News with that decision with Stephanopoulos and what they're doing with 60 Minutes CBS, or just shrinking the place like we're seeing in with CNN and NBC and all of that stuff. Um, you know, it's certainly a way to get off of Trump's radar, right?
Right.
And they look, this is not illogical, right? We know that he will operate this way. Look what he did to Bezos and Amazon Web Services and that contract with the Pentagon in his first term. So it's not like so to me, the major media companies who are publicly traded companies are making very rational business decisions. So I sort of like left brain, right brain this, right? You're like, well, I get it, and they've made a decision about how what they view their custodianship of the news divisions are and aren't.
Right.
And I'll just leave it at
Except
that.
that I think the public, if you say, what is the curb appeal, if there's any left of
The
national
legacy
media
media.
or
Yeah,
legacy media, it is that they speak truth to power and they are not to be
absolutely.
cowed by the rich and the powerful. And that does not seem to be the case at
No,
this
and
point.
what the problem is are the business incentives, right? When the attention
Yeah.
economy is is the primary way you fund
Right.
journalism, that's a mistake, right?
Yeah.
I don't think nonprofit works. I think nonprofit is code for leans left to a lot of people, and I think I think find a revenue stream, right? I think it's in high school sports and youth sports. Like that's what I want to do. I think I also think that there's going to be a bit of a reaction to people are actually craving local and community. They just don't have it yet, right? And in fact, I've run across some local news entrepreneurs who have brought back classifieds because people do want to just advertise in their neighborhood looking for something or selling something. What seemed to be great, I can just put this on eBay or put this on Craigslist. No, they want a dog walker from their neighborhood, and they'd rather advertise that on Nextdoor than advertise that on Craigslist, right? So, and some of these there's one local news entrepreneur who's brought back a printed edition because the print edition makes money. And what's in that weekly print edition now? What's in that weekly print edition are obituaries with a lot of pictures and highlights from the week in high school sports with bold-faced names, all the stuff people used to cut out and stick on the refrigerator. There's still a lot of people who would like to cut stuff out and stick it on the refrigerator, as it turns out. Right. And there's, I do think that there's, one of my core insights of social media is we're all a little bit narcissistic, right? Or else social media wouldn't have this many adherents to it. One, two, we all think what's happening right around us is really important. Well, then lean into this as a local news entrepreneur. Lean into it. Don't sort of tell them it's unimportant. In fact, no.
Is part of what I get from you, Chuck, is like, you're not saying, hey, you know what I really want to do? I want to make the coverage of Washington better. I spent my whole career in Washington. We need to do a better job of it. What you seem to be saying is we need to spend less time talking about Washington, or at least talking about it in a way that is not so self-obsessed with process and with the inside game of how the players work and what what the day-to-day movement is of big people in Washington, important people in Washington.
Look, it is obviously there's always a market for those folks and the market or that information, but the market for that information is inside Washington. I mean, look, I was a believer that, at Hotline, I wanted to test the premise that that you could do this nationally. I think Politico proved that you can't. I know that they would sit here and say, no, but you didn't. You know how Politico makes most of their revenue? With their subscription services, Politico Pro, right? Which was what? The same model that National Journal had. The same model that everybody thinks that there's this massive base of people that will support this, and there's not financially. There might be more people that are interested in reading it, more than you think, but not enough to support it financially. And so we sort of delude ourselves because you can find a lot of OPM, other people's money, to pay for this type of coverage in Washington, and have a very successful product. Okay,
yes.
Punchbowl, Axios, these are highly successful. Politico. I'm not sitting here dismissing the business success, but it isn't. These are not mainstream national news organizations. They're very successful Washington, covering the American government news organizations. And what I'd say is we have too many journalists in Washington and not enough everywhere else.
I 100%
that's the basic problem.
I 100% agree.
I just